Hi everyone. Hope you are all doing well. I hope everyone's safe, sound, happy, and the summer is starting all right. I know a lot of you were teaching, and assuming your courses, the classes you teach are on the same schedule as my son's, you are probably about done, so that should hopefully be a relief. If you're like me, you're already thinking about the fall and all the unknowns that are associated with that as well, though. So my best wishes for all of you in that regard. I want to talk a little bit about the last couple of weeks and some changes that I want to go through. So, um, I got some feedback from you. About half of the people responded to my request for kind of mid-course feedback, and so I really appreciate those responses. But between the responses I got and then also just kind of reflecting on what you guys are doing well and what I think might need the last little bit of work, I've decided to slightly alter the last couple of weeks. The format's not changing a whole lot, but there's a couple of important things that I think will change and hopefully be for the better. So the feedback was pretty clear, and the big take-home message I got from the feedback really is that you are all enjoying the class and learning a lot, and so I appreciate that, and I'm very happy about that. But I am expecting probably way too much, and this course is taking you far longer than my intention had been. And so there was 11 responses, again, about half the class, and it seems that about a third are probably spending the amount of time that I had basically planned for or hoped or expected, I guess, being kind of in the 8 to 9 hours with a couple even less than that. But that means that 2/3 of the class are spending more than the 9 hours kind of target, with about a third of the class spending way more than that 9 hours target. And that's too much. And frankly, I apologize. That was not my intention at all. I think I misjudged kind of how long some things take. One of the things in the comment that it seemed pretty clear I was misjudging how long it might take is the technique. I think it's very important, and I really believe that hopefully you've learned a lot from investigating a technique and kind of going into it. But I also think I underestimated a couple things. One, just maybe because I'm used to these techniques, I underestimated how much it might take to really learn about them. But two, I also think I underestimated how deep you guys as graduate students would go. So with undergraduates, they will work very hard, so I'm not taking that away, but you guys really took that information and the technique and the protocol and went very deep into it, and that was awesome. It shows how much you really want to learn and how much you're interested in this, but it also shows that I don't necessarily need to kind of make that an assignment, so to speak, in order for some of that to happen. So there's a couple of places that I think I can pull back from the last couple of weeks and hopefully get everyone closer down to that 9 hours target. So I want to talk a little bit about some of those changes at this point. All right, so let's jump to the course, jump to the modules. And so there's a couple of things that I'm doing. For the last couple of weeks, obviously you'll start off reading the paper, and I know that takes a long time. There's no real way around that. So these are deep articles, they're tough articles, and when I read it, it still takes me quite a while. So I think I probably hit on that all right, but some of you might be taking a little bit longer. These articles are tough because science almost has a different language, the acronyms and things like that. So, but I don't really want to change that too much, but what I have changed, and this comes out of some suggestions, is essentially I'm pulling out the two figures, the description of two figures on the initial reading and questions, right? So when you're first reading and you're submitting that initial part on Monday, what you're really looking for is those key terms, the main context, what is the purpose of this article, what are the authors trying to show, and some of the background. So really the abstract, introduction, and discussion and the main point. That's really what you're going through there. Obviously, you're going to have to understand the figures and the data as well, but you don't have to focus on that quite as deep at first, and hopefully that'll come out in some of the other assignments and the next things as well. So then, the next thing I'm doing, and this one has more to do with just trying to get that last little bit of information and of understanding of an article on your own. So instead of presenting a figure that I've prescribed to you, the discussion post is pretty much very similar to what it was before, and it includes a presentation on data, but this time, instead of saying present on figure 1, I'm going to have you present the data that you feel gives the information that shows the take-home message, a particular take-home message. All right? So what do I mean by that? So here I say, provide a link to the presentation describing the data that the authors used to demonstrate the key point that PD-1 expression by TAMs reduces their phagocytic activity and results in increased tumor growth. So this is a key sub-point of the article that hopefully you'll pick up when you read it. Again, I didn't say describe figure 1 or describe figure 2. I'm saying describe the data here. Now that might include some parts of figure 1 and some parts of figure 2, or all parts of figure 3 plus a couple small things. You have to kind of decide what data really shows that. And this is important because this is probably the last thing that you guys really need to improve on, especially for that final, mostly for the final understanding of an article and demonstrating that metacognition of an article, but also for the exit exam and things that you're going to do in science later on. So the example I give here, and you can come back and read it, but we learned that COVID-19 uses ACE2, right? But if I ask you to kind of describe the data, you wouldn't just show me one figure that shows that, okay, the virus is infecting cells with ACE2. There's actually a lot of things that really combine to solidify that, right? In order to show ACE2 as the receptor, the authors, one, showed that the spike protein of COVID-19 had similar sequence to the spike protein of viruses that do use ACE2. So that was the first bit of evidence. Then they demonstrated that COVID-19 infected cell lines that naturally express ACE2. Then they demonstrated that you could even take cell lines that COVID-19 didn't infect, and if you made them express ACE2, then they did infect. That's a pretty conclusive result showing that ACE2 must be the receptor or must be important. And then finally, they even showed that if you knock down ACE2 in cells that do express it, that reduced viral infection. So these were all pieces of data that combined to really make that subpoint. And to really, the final aspect of understanding an article is kind of pulling all that together. So in week 4, I'm giving you a key subpoint. There's other key subpoints that you'll have to kind of pull out, but I'm giving you one, and you're going to describe the data that kind of goes to that. Everything else with this is pretty similar. All right, so then, probably the biggest thing in terms of time is I have taken away the presentation on a key technique. This was the last week I was really going to have you investigate a key technique anyway, so this week I'm going to present on the key technique, right? And I have you answer a few questions kind of based on what you see there on how this might relate to the article and kind of what that might be useful for. So hopefully this will take away a little bit of that time. I still think it's been very beneficial to have had you kind of investigate it, and you guys have brought in things that I would never have brought in. You've learned from each other, hopefully, along the way. But this should really take away some of that time needed. You don't have to investigate and present on a technique. I will give this one to you for this week. And then the end is basically similar. That final analysis is pretty much going to be the same all the time because that's what I really want you to get. Week 5 will be very similar to that, a couple of minor changes. So the initial reading basically still won't have the figures part, it'll just have the overall messages and context and things like that. The group discussion, I haven't altered this yet, but the group discussion will be the same idea where I give you a key take-home message and you have to pick the data and present the data that shows that. The difference is in week 4, I'm having everyone present on the same thing so that you can learn from each other and help each other with, well, you might have, that data might have been important as well and that you missed, or you did a great job with that. You can get some feedback because you're doing the same one. In week 5, in the small groups, each person will be doing it on a different key take-home message. And so when you watch each other's video, you can really put all that together and see it in the figure or the paper as a whole. The key technique will not have a presentation again, but what I will have you do instead is basically take all those key techniques that we've learned about and I'll revise this to fit exactly what we've done, but you're going to basically say how that data or how that technique helped show the data for some of these key points. So how it was used in this particular article. And again, these are the last two things that I think you guys really need to have to nail this down. How do multiple figures contribute to showing a key point? And why did the authors choose this technique, or how did they use it to make that point? And then that will be it. So for the most part, take-home message with all of this, since as you know I like take-home messages. I've tried to reduce the amount of time this should take by spreading out kind of when you're looking at the figures and using the time where you learn from each other, and also by eliminating the investigation and presentation on the technique that you guys have to do. And we're really working on that last component of finding multiple figures that combine together to make a key point, and how the techniques are used to do that. And I think with that, you guys will be experts and absolutely awesome at reading cell biology articles. You're already doing such an amazing job. All right. If you have questions, concerns, or feedback further, I am always open. I love to hear back from you guys. If you have questions, remember I have the 2 office hour sessions, but I am more than happy for anyone to email me, anyone to write in the Ask Your Professor, and I can set up Zoom times and meet with you and help you out. So please take advantage of that if you need it, or if you have concerns, or if you don't think I'm going far enough to kind of make this a reasonable amount of time for the last couple of weeks. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening as always. Looking forward to the last couple of weeks. Keep up the awesome work. You guys have been an absolute pleasure and privilege to teach. Thank you.